Hey cherries, it's Jessica here, and today's video is part of our Technique Tuesday video series. This month we are focusing on embossing. So last week I showed a bunch of different examples of how to use embossing folders, so I thought this week I could show some different techniques using embossing powder. I love using embossing powder. I love the texture it gives. I love using the glittery ones and the shimmery and metallic ones. So today I will be applying it onto my background layout using some crackle paste, which isn't typically used with embossing powder. It does work and it holds the embossing powder while you heat it up. So that's what I'm doing. I'm using a maple leaf stencil, and this is a 6x6 stencil, so I'm just trying to work around the page and piece it together to fill this 12x12 area the best that I can. I try not to focus too hard on it because I know it's a background, and if there's things that don't turn out right with the stenciling, I can usually cover it up. Now I'm starting to apply my embossing powder onto my wet paste. And I wanted like this color gradient from greens into yellows and golds into red, because those are the colors that maple leaves go from. So I'm creating an ombre and wiping off the extra before moving on to the next color. I am using a few different brands of embossing powder. I have some Sizzix, some Ranger, some Tim Holtz, and some Wow. So I really like to mix and match, and I picked these just based off of the color that I wanted. I will say when you are heating it up on paste, it takes a lot longer because you have to essentially dry the paste as you're setting the powder. So just be prepared for that. If there are any areas that I wanted to go over again, I just do that with a second coat. I like to take a paintbrush and just fill in the areas. I am doing a syrup layout, so I used this cut file. It's a free cut file in the Cricut design space. I just typed in syrup, and this is one of the first ones that was available. So I cut it out, and I wanted to add a little bit of shading to it to make it look more like a rounded bottle. So I am doing that using watercolors. There's a leaf that's on the label part of the bottle, and I wanted to add embossing powder to that as well. So I covered it with embossing ink using an Emboss It dabber. If I didn't want to use the crackle paste technique for my background, I could have also used this dabber and the stencil. So there's a lot of different ways that you could do that. Then I combined 3 different colors to make my colored leaf, and I thought that my syrup bottle needed another coat of watercolor, so I'm going over that. I often find that watercolor paint needs multiple coats because it dries a lot lighter than what it is when it's wet. So you just oftentimes might need multiple coats. Now I am working on putting together these cut file pieces that I cut out in different color cardstocks. I decided to go the cut file route for making this layout because I didn't think that I would find a lot of syrup embellishments, and actually Catherine Pooler did have a few, but I wanted a more mixed media look, so I decided to go with the cut file. And there are some things that you can do to personalize the cut file a little bit more. I'm going to go in and add some acrylic paint on here as well, just to make it look even more like a bottle of syrup. So I'm making this part of the top of the bottle where there would just be air, as well as the handle a little whiter because that's where it would just be clear glass. On the lid of the bottle, I decided to use an embossing pen and draw over everywhere that I wanted shiny, and then I used some gold embossing powder so it looks like it has a metallic lid, which is perfect. Next, I'm using a white brush pen and going over the areas I want white, and I also added some like white streaks or shine marks on the bottle here and there where I thought that some shine marks would naturally be. So along the sides and the top. This syrup bottle is going to be pretty much the main embellishment of this page. I wanted to keep the embellishing pretty light because the background already has so much going on. That's why I ended up adding a few of those additional details to that syrup bottle. Now I am working on adding watercolor background to these leaves. I think adding this watercolor made these leaves stay in the background a little bit more, because when they were on the stark white paper, they really popped out, but adding a coordinating color of watercolor just helps them blend in, and I like what it did to this ombre. So over the green embossed leaves, I added green watercolor paint, and it's very watery, and I slowly was able to build up layers until I got the look that I wanted with this. And of course, when I am doing a page like this, I wanted to add a lot of splatters as well. So to make splatters, I just water down this watercolor paint even more, and I sometimes will hit the paintbrush against my finger for some larger paint dots, and I'll flick it by running my finger across the bristles for some smaller speckles. And I like having a mix of both throughout the page. And again, where I have the green leaves, I'm adding green speckles. To finish this page, I added the photos and syrup bottle with some foam and created a title with some thickers. So thanks for watching.